Okay, can you hear me, Doctor?
Yes, I can hear you fine, Ron.
Yay. Okay.
So
So
far,
this,
so good.
this is wonderful when things are work. But anyways, you guys all know this is Dr. Ashton Embry. He's a PhD in geology. Speak if I'm incorrect. He's been an advocate for multiple sclerosis for over 20 years, since your son was diagnosed. You've written multiple papers that have been published. Papers have been not published. You've written books on geology. Um, you're quite the scientist and quite the advocate for us folks with multiple sclerosis. And you and your son and your wife are doing amazing things. And so just very, very excited to have you here. I'm glad that we figured out how to get you here.
Yeah, glad
And
we're on. Yeah.
um, and I had a list of things to talk about, but can you give us just a little history of how this all started? Because, from what I understand, one day everything you kind of mind your own business and you get a phone call about Matt.
Well, Matt was still at home at the time. He was only 18. So when he gets diagnosed, you think, oh well, there must be a way to take care of this. When the doctor tells you no, they don't have any medicines or anything, then you realize, well, you better start trying to find out what it's about and what you can do about it.
And you, from being your scientific background, I mean, you've been a researcher and a scientist for a very, very long time. So you're able to approach it from not only an empirical standpoint, but from a scientific standpoint.
Yeah, just from a scientific methodology, and when you try and find, okay, what is multiple sclerosis? How does it do it? Yeah, how does that disease work? And then, if you really want to get into it, the final question is why? Why does it even happen? And so those are the three questions, and it took me quite a while to have to go into all the medical papers and everything to just understand what it is. Then you get into how it actually is doing it. And once I was able to do that, then you see what you're really trying to find are the are the causal factors. What are the
Yes.
causal factors that are driving MS? And once you can figure out the causal factors, then you can try and do something about stopping those causal factors from acting. And that was my basic premise.
That's correct me if I'm wrong, but this is rather new. I mean, I don't. Was Swank's work even started yet, or was this around?
Oh yeah, well Swank had done like his work in the 1950s.
Oh, okay.
And he did it on just there wasn't much data back then. They didn't even really understand what was driving MS.
So he approached it more empirically.
He just saw from an epidemiology in Norway that the people who are on the coast had much smaller amounts of multiple sclerosis than the people who are up on the farms. And from that, he said, okay, it's probably the fat because the people on the farms ate lots of the saturated fats and the people on the coast didn't. So that was his hypothesis that it was being caused by the saturated fat, which was a very good start.
Yes.
Basically, he uncovered one of many causal factors. But by the time I got going, 50 years afterwards, there was tons of data. So I had it much easier because there was, we could understand what it was and what drive it and why it drives it.
So So Matt's diagnosed. You set on in the search. You hit the primary literature, and you begin to develop something we call now the best bet diet.
Well, the best bet diet came from the causal factors.
Okay.
When I saw that there were many dietary factors were actually causal factors, just like Swank had uncovered the saturated fat being one causal factor. Okay, there you go. And I discovered how dairy proteins could drive MS, how the various proteins in various grains can contribute to MS, how various vitamins were critical for sort of keeping the immune system well controlled. So it was just when you added up all the various factors that were uncovered, then you just said, okay, we've got to design a dietary protocol that took into account all of these causal factors.
So then, would it be safe to say that you didn't necessarily agree with the autoimmune
Oh
hypotheses?
no, I totally agreed with the autoimmune hypothesis. That was how. That was
Okay.
how the MS was causing the damage.
Okay.
Okay? And you
Okay.
got to think, okay, now what are the causal factors that drive your immune system to attack your brain?
Okay.
And that's critical. You have to have that as your basis.
Okay.
And once I said, okay, here are the various factors. There are two main categories of factors. There's the factors that get the immune system to be skewed so it attacks proteins in the brain. And then there's the other side of the immune system that's supposed to calm it down, that keeps it well regulated. And it was very clear that people with MS didn't have proper immune regulation. So those two things that's what drives autoimmunity, that you get your immune system skewed to the attack side, and you have much less good immune regulation, and parts of the various nutritional factors were driving the attack side of the immune system, and there was a major deficiency of nutritional factors that supported the regulation side of the immune system. So you want to take out the nutritional factors that drive the attack, and you want to add in the nutritional factors that support the immune suppression and regulation. That
Interesting.
just seemed to me to be
No, it's very didactic.
yeah.
That's what intrigues me about you is because I mean, most people don't know this, but I was in dental school. I chose to study rats and autoimmunity in a diabetic state, and so every day after class, everybody would leave, and I would go into the lab and draw blood and check their diabetic state, and I would inoculate them with P. gingivalis, which is an oral pathogen, and I don't know. So I'm a kind of wannabe scientist. So
Yeah, that's
your
not a surprise to me. Yep.
so your approach is very, very it touches base with me. So not only you're finding the triggers, but you're also finding what nutrients would help suppress and what nutrients actually support.
Yes.
Interesting. And so that's is where the best bet. So if we just could say for people that don't know, I know that most people have a really, really good idea of it, but the things that we're avoiding are high sugar, all dairy, and all grains.
And important one is all gluten. And you also want to avoid any food that causes an allergenic reaction.
For some, okay, for example, some people, maybe eggs, maybe.
That's
Uh,
right. Eggs are often cause an allergic reaction in many people. That's just how it is.
so you're not just excluding gluten per se as far as wheat, but you're talking about even other grains now.
Well, now the other grains can be problematic too, but not as much as the gluten. That it's they're more like they're more like they're more like sugar, and that they're very high glycemic, and
Uh,
our bodies really aren't made for them.
okay, so by the high glycemic, it's similar then to something with a high sugar. Is that we're going
Yeah,
to do the phlegm,
it's not as bad as that, but it's along that pathway.
and then perhaps is there some cross reactivity to like wheats and things?
But well,
Perhaps.
there is with the gluten grains for almost for sure.
Okay.
Like that's the one autoimmune disease that we know the cause of is celiac, and the
Yes.
cause is gluten. Well, okay, that tells you a lot. The only autoimmune condition out of maybe 80, 90 different kinds, we know one for the
Hmm.
cause, and the cause is a grain.
That's
Well,
great.
what are the odds of that?
Interesting. Very interesting. I like that a lot. Okay, so it's a big step for most, right? They're going to avoid mostly all grains.
It's tough. I mean, it's tough to change one's dietary habits after 20, 30 years. I mean, that's just,
Right.
of
Right.
course it is. And it took us, I'd say, 6 months to 1 year to start to feel reasonably comfortable. Now, after 25 years almost, it's just, now that I think it'd be very hard for me to change from what I'm doing now to something else.
To go back. I feel the same way. It was very difficult for me, but now I can't imagine going back. Even if tomorrow they said, "Wow, here's your cure," I think the benefits of the diet you're proposing or proposed is wonderful. Yeah. Okay. So we got the diet. So if we go to the nutrient side, if we know that we're not eating right, but then you have supplements you do propose, but then I'm guessing you have also you recommend more of a whole foods when possible.
Yeah, well, supplements are, I have to admit, they're actually easier than, say, probably eating 9 cups of vegetables. You know what I mean? And it's
Yes,
better to eat the 9 cups of vegetables, 9 servings, but it's tough, and so the supplements are a way to make it easier.
to get them in. Let's take it
That's
back a little
that's
bit.
okay.
Are you okay? Okay.
Yeah.
We take it back just a little bit because the one thing I did want to touch on is sodium. And I know one of your recommendations is to have a you made it very clear that a high sodium diet is also contributes has been shown to contribute to increased multiple sclerosis. And so you recommend a lower sodium. Can you explain that a little bit?
Well, once again, that's just from the scientific data they have found. They have shown high sodium, again, activates the attack side of the immune system, which is what you don't want to have happen.
It's another
And
trigger.
so you want to bring back the sodium. And then there's the theoretical side that I haven't talked about yet.
Okay.
In that, when you have look at all the stuff you take out and all the stuff you have to put back in, you end up, well, this is basically a Paleolithic diet.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes total sense because that's what our genes are built for.
Right.
And so the people with MS have a genetic structure such that the non-Paleolithic factors create this autoimmunity. And when it comes to high salt, that is not Paleolithic. That
Right.
the Paleolithic intake of sodium was maybe a gram, but 1,000 milligrams.
So let's go back to Cordain's work.
Whereas the average sodium intake is 3,500 milligrams.
Wow.
So you can understand that, okay, that's going to cause a problem in people who are genetically susceptible to this problem.
And that's the average Canadian diet, and I'm sure American is about 3,000.
That's the average North American intake is between 3,000 and 4,000 milligrams. So about 3 to 4 times too much.
Wow.
So just, again, then you have the empirical data that shows high sodium gets the attack side of the immune system doing bad things. So it makes sense both from a deductive and from the empirical data.
Absolutely. Well, on that, I got a chance to speak with you the other day, and was very interested to have the conversation about fats.
Yes.
And I wonder if you could reiterate a little bit of what you spoke before, because I found it very interesting. It isn't necessarily the saturated fats versus not, but it's the quality of those saturated fats.
Well, it's when it comes to fats, it's the primary message is balance. There are 4 very different types of fats. There's saturated fat, monounsaturated fat, and then the omega-6 polyunsaturated fat and the omega-3 polyunsaturated fat. And each type of fat has its own, it does stuff in the body. And you can, just like I was talking about the salt, you can come at it from both sides. If you come at it from a deductive side and say, okay, what was the Paleolithic intake of fats? It was about 50% monounsaturated, about 25% saturated, about 15 to 18% omega-6 and about 7% omega-3. Now, once again, our North American diet is totally off. It's mainly saturated fats and some omega-6 fat. So, and then if you have a look at the empirical data, the saturated fat is pro-inflammatory, and the omega-3 fats are keep the immune system well controlled and well regulated. Now, as I say, in our current diet, we hardly get any omega-3 at all, like almost nothing.
Almost nothing.
Well, and we get tons of saturated fat. So we have tons of pro-inflammatory stuff and hardly any immune regulatory stuff? Well, just you got to change your intake of fats to try and come as well as you can
as well as you can.
to a Paleolithic balance.
So as we spoke about before, which I think it was a very valid point, very interesting point, you said we tend to, when we start supplementing, maybe we overdo it on the omega-3 side and kind of ignore the omega-6 side.
Well, the omega-6s we get lots of. They're in the margarines, They're in the margarines and some of the other fats, and the baked goods often have omega-6s in them. So
right.
we as I say, we tend to get a lot of omega-6 and a lot of saturated fat.
Gotcha.
Too much. So we have to balance again. They said the Paleolithic balance between omega-3 and omega-6 was about 1-to-1 or maybe 2-to-1 max.
1-to-1.
Where in our society it's probably up to 20-to-1. Well, you can see that's going to cause a problem. If you have an immune problem, it's going to make it much worse.
Certainly. Now, is there a distinction between, let's say, good omega-6s, maybe like grass-fed versus conventional grain-fed animals?
That's what causes the fats. So the grain-fed animals produce omega-6 and saturated fats. The grass-fed animals produce much more omega-3s.
Interesting. Okay.
Which is why we are much more attuned to omega-3s, because for most of the 4 million years we've been around, it was grass-fed and plant-fed.
Because there was nothing else.
That were eaten and fats that were eaten. But now we don't get that at all.
So we've changed our whole, we all know that we've changed our whole dietary system. Everything that we're doing now is different. So along with that, then, going back to Paleolithic, like the organ meats are important, and the
organ meats are good. I mean, they're natural for us. That's what our bodies are used to, and they contain good fats.
Good fats. So you're recommending, and just going through, the website, the MSO website, which is a very, very good website. Go through and summarizes the diet quite well, at least for me, and as well as the supplements, and reiterates what you're saying. What would you say your a typical dinner would be? Because
dinner we find is pretty easy generally, because I'd say half the time we have a fish, and then we'll have vegetables. Sometimes we may have a little bit of rice, but not necessarily. But I would say maybe a couple times a week you might have potato or rice.
Okay.
But the key is the vegetables. And we try and have 1 or 2 vegetables. And generally the vegetables can be spinach, asparagus, Brussels sprouts. We have often have a salad too. And for the salad dressing, we just use olive oil, which is a monounsaturated fat, because we're trying to get half our fats. We want monounsaturated fat. So that's a really easy way to get the monounsaturated.
So on one hand, you're getting the omega-3s from your fish. Now you're getting the monounsaturated.
No, the omega-3s are tough, because even in the fish, there isn't that much of it.
Not that much.
So I always take an omega-3 supplement every morning.
Okay. Like in a pill form or a liquid form?
No, I just take 2 spoonfuls of fish oil.
Like, for example,
it gives me about 7 grams of the EPA and the DHA.
Is there a danger in overdoing that fish oil?
I would say no.
Okay.
I mean,
Your body's gonna know what to do with
always
it.
remember. I don't know if you remember back many years ago, 2006, there was a mine disaster. I think it was in West Virginia or somewhere.
Okay.
There was an explosion, and they had to go down and get the miners, and they were really had low oxygen, and they had brain damage because of that. What
Yes.
they did, they gave those guys 50,000
Wow.
of the omega 3, and that brought them back
Wow.
50,000.
Wow. That's
So
impressive.
that that tells you 50 grams of omega 3. That's what they gave those miners, and that brought them
Wow.
back. You know why? Because our brains are made out of omega 3 fats. And when you don't get the omega 3, then the brain makes itself out of omega 6 fats. And that's
Mm,
not so good.
okay. Very, very interesting. So, we have the diet and we have the supplements, and you have those pretty well documented on the website. And that's on the MS Hope website. You also have a few other websites, but um, let's, if you don't mind, can we touch on a few other things like
Sure. Anything
CCSVI?
fine.
Thank you, thank you. Just the liberation therapy. Which I know you and I have talked a little bit about this before, but um, I know this comes up every time we have deeper conversations. If you could touch on that, if you will, just for a
Yeah,
second.
I'm actually pleased to, because it's been almost 10 years now exactly since this really came out.
Okay.
And again, it fits in perfectly with the of sort of how the MS works, because your immune system has to be able to access the brain to cause the damage. And the brain is generally well protected by the blood brain barrier. So the immune system has to get through the blood brain barrier. And that was always a question. Well, gee, how does it do that? Like, it isn't surprising the immune system can attack the joints, and you get arthritis, or can attack the beta cells, and you get type 1 diabetes, and you can attack this, kidneys, attack the liver. There's many autoimmune diseases, but the brain is the one thing the body really protected well with this blood brain barrier. So it's always a question, well, how's this sort of attack side of the immune system getting by the brain blood barrier? And then when you find out, when you have impaired drainage from the brain with sort of blocked blocked veins in the neck, and then the jugulars, well, that causes the blood to go back up in the brain, and that causes damage to the blood brain barrier. So here's was the final answer that we didn't have any idea about: why the blood brain barrier wasn't doing so well in people with MS. So
Mm-hmm.
now we found it out. Okay, great. The, there's no doubt at all in my mind, and from the data is overwhelming, that this impaired blood flow from the brain is part of the MS problem. Is part of the MS disease process.
Part of it,
And
absolutely.
I think from the data, there's no doubt, I would say probably 80 of all the studies they've done, which are thousands of people they've tested, thousands of thousands. It's about probably 80 to 90% they demonstrated have impaired blood flow.
80 to
Okay,
90%.
80 to 90%. Now, it's also important to realize that probably 20% of all people have impaired
Interesting.
blood flow. So it's definitely not the main cause.
It's
It's
not
just a
cause and effect.
cause. And the one thing we don't know yet, and
Yes.
I'm actually keep watching for this, is what is the ultimate cause of the impaired veins. Why are the jugular
Right.
veins of 20% of all people not working very well. My gut feeling right now, it's probably a vitamin D deficiency during when during the during during fetal growth. So when the baby is developing, vitamin D is very important factor in the blood vessels and how they form. So that's my gut feeling, and that would explain the 20% of all people. So again, I think it's a vitamin D problem, but it's very, very early on.
Vitamin D going back developmentally as a child, that's very interesting.
Vitamin D plays so many roles, and that's why it is probably the biggest causal factor of multiple sclerosis is the vitamin D, and that's proven almost beyond a doubt in Australia.
In
Where
Australia,
you go from tropical Australia to temperate Australia, you get like 7 times the amount of multiple sclerosis just going from latitude 10 up to latitude 42. And the genes are the same, the diets are the same, the infectious agents are the same. The only thing that's changing is your ultraviolet. That's the only thing that's changing, that's causing us 7 times the amount of multiple sclerosis.
7 times.
7 times, and it's only because of the amount of ultraviolet radiation that's coming in. And so there's no doubt, once again, that is is the primary causal factor of MS is a deficiency of vitamin D in childhood.
So, see, that's what people are chiming in. They're asking about chemo protocol. But so, what you're almost saying is that this has happened developmentally as a child. So, it's almost like now we're supplementing vitamin D, but the damage is already there.
Well, the process has already formed. Okay, that you've got this high attack side, and you've got this sort of impaired regulatory side.
Right.
Okay, so, and that's vitamin D plays a big role in both of those. But once you have MS, you can still take lots of vitamin D, and that can still help to control the immune system and make it act properly.
The vitamin D in itself is not necessarily a vitamin; it's more of a hormone, and it downregulates the immune system.
Well, it's called vitamin D, but by the time it's doing what it's supposed to be doing, it is a hormone.
Interesting.
Calcitriol. Yeah.
Calcitriol. Very, very interesting. All right, I'm going to keep you forever, but I'm going to keep you moving. Stem cells. I know you've talked about that a bit. What's your thoughts now?
Well, there's 2 very different types of stem cell therapy. All right. There's the sort of the stem cell replacement, where they wipe out your entire immune system and then replace it. That has proven to be very effective in multiple sclerosis, and this is not a surprise. What's the driver of multiple sclerosis is a screwed up immune system that's been caused by all these this lack of vitamin D and too much saturated fat and too much dairy and this and that. So if you take out that screwed up immune system and put in a brand new one, well, yeah, it's going to have a major positive effect. Now, the other kind of stem cell treatment, which is totally different, is that they just inject some stem cells into say your central nervous system, and sort of hope they start to to repair things. That's still high. We don't know too much about that. That may or may not be of much value. It may be of some, and
Right.
there's from a theoretical view, it may be of some. They did that small study in New York, and there was people with secondary progressive MS who did better
You did better.
following the stem cell transplant. So that's not that's got potential.
So the first type of stem cell treatment you're talking about, generally we'd have to go out of the country because it's not offered in Canada, the U.S. We'd
Well,
have
it's
to go.
not offered in Canada. I think you could probably get it in the United States if you want to pay for it. It's going to
Right.
cost
I
you
think so.
maybe $250,000 in the States.
Wow.
Now you can go to Mexico. You can get it. You can go. Probably one of the best spots to go is Israel, which
Is
has a
it?
very top flight medical system, and it will cost you 100 grand maybe in Israel.
Hmm. Hmm. Okay, so let's say I'm just going to play devil's advocate. You go and you spend $100,000, go to Israel, you get these wonderful cells, but then you come back and you go back to your standard North American diet. Um, the diet has to continue to play a role. Would you say not?
It probably would, but not as much so
Okay,
because you've gotten rid of the immune system that was so attuned to those problems. So if you have an immune system that's highly sensitized to the Epstein-Barr virus, the milk proteins, which are cross-react to the myelin, but if you don't have that immune system anymore, then you might be able to do not
tolerate you
too
well.
badly. But if it was me, I'd want to play it on the safe side and say, okay, well, why would I gamble just so I can eat some dairy products? Well, that to me
Yeah,
is not a good thing. But each person has to make up their own mind and their own choices.
because Paleolithic wise, I mean, humans were never meant to eat or
That's
drink.
something. Exactly. Why I follow the diet because I see it as the best for your own personal health. That's what my genes were made for. Why would I want to make my genes not too happy by giving them stuff they have no idea what it is, and they have to adapt to it and try and make when so I believe a paleo diet is is extremely healthy for everyone.
And not only for MS, and it's going to be
Oh,
carry through.
I think I don't care who you are.
Yeah,
We're all very similar from a genetic point of view. Very similar. We have there is a very low genetic diversity. So
I
the
keep
paleo
staring at my
diet is
phone.
very good.
I'm not looking at text. My notes to ask you questions. Can I ask you about because you did a great there was a great lecture. You had a doctor that lectured on medical marijuana. And Canada seems more to be well, not more, but is an innovator on the subject, whereas the United States tends to be a little further back. Can you speak a little bit about multiple sclerosis and medical marijuana?
Well, once again, there is a lot of good data from both an empirical side and a theoretical side that the cannabinoids can be of value. There are some very good studies which show that it does again get the immune system to act much better. Okay. Now the good news is what about maybe half the United States, medical marijuana is available. So I think you have all to gain and very little to ever lose by trying medical marijuana. And I would say most of that is the CBD, which has no effect on the brain in terms of in terms of getting high or anything like that. It's just medicine, and they put in a small amount of THC sometimes, and that's okay. I mean, I think there's a lot of good data that says this stuff should be of value.
And the theory behind it, its method of action or its physiology would be, I guess, anti-inflammatory. Well, it's probably unknown a lot because it's
It's
hitting it.
mainly anti-inflammatory. I mean, that we have natural cannabinoid receptors all through the brain. Well,
Absolutely.
they're there because the cannabinoids do keep the brain working properly, and we do make our own cannabinoids. So all you're doing is giving the brain some more.
Supplementing.
Yeah.
Interesting. All right, I'm going to keep you moving here. Fecal microbial transplants. Do you have any
Yeah,
opinion
well,
on that?
once again, there's no doubt that the microbiome plays a huge role with the immune system. And so you want the best microbiome you can. And people with MS, they have shown their microbiome is not so good. And there's, the best way to get a really good microbiome, but it takes a while, is the diet, of course. That's why we have a bad one, because of the bad diet. And so your Paleolithic diet will give you a very good microbiome, but it's going to take time. Now, a fecal transplant, from assuming you're getting a good microbiome in that transplant, is just a very fast way of improving your microbiome. And there's no doubt, the better your microbiome, again, it keeps the immune system well regulated, tells it to calm down, it keeps the gut barrier really, really, really good. And so, yeah, yes. So that's why we really recommend probiotics.
So the way your diet and the probiotics, you're creating this garden in which you're
You're
allowing these
just,
good
yeah,
bacteria to
you're
grow.
creating the good gut flora that tell the immune system to act properly.
So, do you have an opinion on? We're gonna move this to another time. Somebody's just asking this now about low dose naloxone,
About what?
LDN or low dose
Low
naloxone.
dose naltrexone. Well, I have a essay on this on the Direct MS website. Again, it sort of seems to be a thing that the brain responds to and is anti-inflammatory. So again, it's just one more supplement that that pushes you over to the positive side. But, people always think there's just going to be one magic supplement. There isn't. There's many, and the key is just, okay, do the vitamin D, do the if you want to do some LDN, fine. Maybe you want to do a little medical marijuana, fine. It's just, you're just trying to do everything you can to push the immune system back, so it's really doing what it's supposed to do and does not attack the brain.
So essentially, you're creating this toolbox.
Yeah,
And
that's right, and it's it's multiple. And for some reason the medical pharmaceutical complex wants to have one magic pill, and that's it, and they'll charge you $50,000 for it, and then
Hmm.
everybody's happy. Well, that's not how the real world works. There is no one magic pill. It's a multiple of things, and they all work together.
So, people are talking about Alpha, the podcast. Yeah, he's on the MS Hope website. He breaks down all the supplements quite nicely, with explanations. So you guys could be able to go to that. He has that MS Direct website, which also is papers, is quite a few papers, on topics. It's definitely worth reading with the time. Um, the one other question that I wanted to bring up was exercise in MS. Your thoughts on that?
Well, once again, it's the more you can do, the better.
Just
And
part of
I
the
accept the
toolbox.
fact that just depending on how your MS has affected you, you're going to be able to do various different types of exercise regimens.
Right,
But
right.
do as much as you can because it's gets the blood flow going. It gets it just your again. It's a Paleolithic thing also that our bodies are made and are used to and expect lots of exercise because for 4 million years that's what we did. So our current lifestyle is much more sedate. Well, that's gonna have not good results. So the more exercise you can do, the better.
So
But you're
one of
right.
the
Don't go overboard. If
within reason,
yeah, within reason, exactly.
with fatigue
So that's
management.
got to
Yeah,
be totally personal. But
totally
if you,
personal.
yeah, but if all I can do is encourage you.
So the more I'm talking to you, and it's occurring to me that if it wasn't around a couple hundred years ago, we shouldn't want it. Whatever the diet or lifestyle, it just seems that we could just take all these newest, latest, greatest, tasty foods or lifestyles or things, and and, and go back to the Paleolithic, as you're saying.
Yeah,
That
I mean, like 250 years ago, multiple sclerosis was almost none of it. Now it's doubling over the last 30 years.
you said 250 years ago, almost non-existent.
Yeah,
Very interesting. Very interesting.
like it was extremely rare. Now, like most people know somebody who has it, and it's getting more and more and more. There's just a paper came out that in the United States, the amount of multiple sclerosis has doubled over the last 20 years.
I get PMs all day long, all night long. I got two from Jordan yesterday, from the Netherlands, one from Mexico. It just seems like it's exploding. I mean, I never, you would never imagine people from the Middle East would have multiple sclerosis. People from Mexico, where there's I don't know, it's so overwhelming for me that all this suffering is going, and it's growing. And
It's growing because our lifestyles are getting worse. They're going further and further and further from the Paleolithic lifestyle. And
I hate to
the more that happens, the more and more MS will come up.
I hate to take it back to diet, but somebody just brought up a good question. They want to know your feelings on legumes, and I was just reading your paper about that, and it's very interesting. Can you just touch on that quickly? And I'm not going to keep you much
Well,
longer.
once again, there's two things that they contain proteins that do harm the gut wall. So once you do damage to the gut wall, the various proteins get through the wall and meet the immune system, and they really get
Okay.
the immune system fired up, which is what you don't want to do, as you know. And the other thing, they can be cause cross reactions with myelin proteins, and so that's even worse. They get the immune system fired up, and they get the immune system fired up to go attack myelin. So there is some good papers if somebody really wants something. I'll send you some stuff, Ron.
Okay.
There's a very good, long, good, detailed essay that's been done on them of why they're so bad.
And I'm sure I can get that out for everybody as well.
Yeah.
And the last thing I'll just have it touch on, and I know it's always a tricky subject, but even on your website, you make it clear that you're not totally anti-MS drugs, that they do have a small purpose as far as it
MS
being.
drugs, again, I see them as potentially as one more supplement.
Okay.
There's no doubt they do fight the inflammation. No doubt at all. That's their main purpose, is to be anti-inflammatory, which is what many other supplements are also. So they're just one more supplement. The problem with them is that they have many not so great side effects. So, you know, the big line is always first do no harm. So if you can keep your MS well controlled without taking a supplement that's also causing a lot of damage to other
Yes,
spots,
of course.
terrific. But if you want to, for both to feel better and to maybe boost your anti-inflammatory and can get by with the side effects, great. Take a drug. But don't stop there. That's
Right.
the biggest problem with the drugs. People think that's all they need, and that's the biggest mistake. A diet plus a drug is fine. A drug by itself is you're gambling your entire health totally.
And so the medical community, and I'm part of it, or was part of it, made it very clear to me as I was diagnosed, and it was told me this way: there's no evidence that diet or lifestyle changes have any effect on MS. This is what the neurologist, and they continue to parrot that out. But you and I, and most of us know that it's not true.
That's right. There's tons of good, solid scientific data and evidence that say the nutritional factors are a key part of MS. There was without a doubt. Now, the doctors could say there's no double blind trials that say, okay, that diet is really good for you. Then that's true. But who's got $10 million to do a double
Well,
blind trial
so
with diet? Nobody.
So let's be a double advocate. Is there any double blind trials that show that, let's say, in 10 years, that the MS drugs change the
No.
outcome of
And
disability? Yeah,
that's a problem too. I mean, so
yeah,
the
yeah.
doctors should be telling you that also, but they don't.
That they
So,
don't. Yeah.
but that doesn't say the MS drug doesn't do
No,
something.
understood.
It does do something, but there's no data that says it it stops progression. In fact, there's lots of data that say the drugs do not stop progression. They
That is,
may slow it somewhat, but
yeah.
that's as good as it gets.
We had Dr. Ken Charlin, the functional neurologist, on, and a good friend of Dr. Walls, and
I
yeah.
met Ken in Iowa last year.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. So his perspective is the same as yours. That it may be a tool in the toolbox, and maybe if your diet and your lifestyle are correct, then we could wean you off. But yeah, to approach it that way, it really resonates with me, rather than saying, being black or white, yes or no. That it becomes more of a change. All right. So for folks to learn more, and of course, I hope everybody knows Living Proof, and you could access that through Amazon Prime. Is that correct?
Yes, you can. Yeah,
Okay.
Amazon Prime.
And then the
If
website.
somebody would like a DVD, just tell them to actually email us, and we'll mail them one.
Excellent, excellent. And which is, if you guys haven't been able to see that, it is a fantastic documentary that him and his son and wasn't your wife all collaborated on. It's emotional, it's provocative, it's everything. Also, they could go to mshope.com and
Yes. Yeah.
learn more. And you have another site, the MS
It's called Direct MS.
I'm
Direct
sorry,
MS.
Direct MS.
Direct
Okay.
-MS.
-MS. And you also accepting donations for continued research and
Well, I always tell people, don't give us money. Spend that money on good food.
I love that.
That's what I always tell everybody.
Yeah.
Spend your money on good food.
Right.
We get our money through various other ways.
Okay.
So people with MS, we don't want them to send us money. We want them to spend their money on good food.
Amen. Amen. Well, I commend you, Doctor. You've given me hope. You've given me hope, and your son and your wife and all your whole family. You guys have just done amazing work. You've done your persistence and your way to attack it from a medical perspective as well as an empirical perspective is commendable, and it resonates with me, and I'm sure resonates with so many. Just excited to continue to give us tools that
Yeah, but thanks, Ron, and thank you, and thank you, and thank you, and thank you, and thank you for all you do for people with MS. That just and it's important that we all work together, and that's
all.
what's going on, and that's what's great. I think.
That's yeah, exactly. You summed it up better than that. I mean, that's the only thing I could think of is I just want to, like your son, like you, like your wife, your family, just give people a little hope. Because I know when I was diagnosed, they gave me which drug do you want? Here's the 3. Have a good life. Out the door I went, and I just kind of scratched my head. And it was like somebody just gave me a death sentence. So I just don't want people to have to feel that.
That's right. That's great.
That there are if you go to sites like yours or you look at the doctor out in Australia or you look at Dr. Wells or you look at yourself, I mean I would love to get all 3 together.
That'd be fun.
It would be fun. I would think I would find it fun. But actually you guys are all I have little particular differences but essentially the same. And
I agree. Yep.
And I love it when knowledge begins to pyramid up. Yep. And we start to put aside the bee sting therapy or whatever. I don't know. There's ever therapy that I tried, as I had, I even went to a slaughterhouse and I made my own myelin pills. And
I remember those days. Yeah.
But oh well. So thank you again. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you, Ron.
I thank your wife for putting up with me and getting him on.
My wife is an extremely important part of this whole story. Believe me.
She's like a second mother to me. I don't know. She just, I don't know, whatever. But I know that she was instrumental in getting you online. So I have to thank her. You can see.
Did it.
Which is awesome. My wife is, she's everything. So
that's right.
I get it. And I love it. Anyways, thank you, Doctor.
Okay.
Keep up the good work. We love it. We thank you and thank you. We can't thank you.
Okay.
Have a
Thanks, Ron.
Great day. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Once that switch is on, it's just a countdown.
Multiple sclerosis remains a mystery. No cure exists.
You have MS and you're done, right?
We don't want that for anybody.
All of a sudden, I get a phone call that Matt had been diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. I literally almost collapsed. I mean, I couldn't believe it.
When you're like looking right in the eye of it, that's the darkness, right?
Immediately your mind starts thinking, okay, We have to try and figure out what the heck's going on.
Where the industry wants to go is produce a drug, and that becomes their product.
It just felt, what a scam.
$6,000 a month for a drug that does nothing?
It's up to the MS Society to marshal hope.
Drug companies have a conflict of interest. If they want to sell their drugs and they need somebody to promote it, the MS Society is a good vehicle to do that through.
Eventually it's gonna kill me. Just help me, man.
My brother researched every aspect of this.
Science is it all. To me, you gotta have hard science. That's it.
The prescription that it's only downhill is not correct.
A Calgary man diagnosed with MS is speaking out tonight.
He and his father are now setting out on a free speaking tour.
This is information you're not gonna get from your neurologist or the MS Society.
They're not going to let you keep saying what you're saying without trying to squash you.
I am holding a letter that was sent to me from the Multiple Sclerosis Society threatening me with a potential lawsuit. Tonight is about hope, and we're gonna get some MS hope on board, all right?
After 45 years, I should be dead, and I'm not.
And that's when I know recovery is possible.
If I can get out there and spread the message and even change 1 or 2 people's lives, then that's what I've got to do.